What's up, guys? So obviously with this whole stay-at-home order thing going on, going to the flea markets and thrift stores is not happening anytime soon. I figure if nothing else, why not just do a recap of some of my favorite finds from the thrift stores. Every day I get new subs, so I thought it would be kinda nice to show them what they may have missed over the past few years I've been making these videos. Right off the bat, let's start off with something silly. And that's all of the Charles Bronson movies that I've come across. There was Family of Cops 3, Cold Sweat, and that collection pack I found on Blu-ray. I'm sure most of you are confused for my weird fascination with Charles Bronson. I got introduced to his movies from Red Letter Media on YouTube, and ever since watching their Death Wish 3 review, I couldn't get enough of Charles Bronson. His movies are either absolutely wonderful or so bad they're great. This next entry sorta kinda doesn't count, but on episode 4, I came across a garage sale by the apartment I live in, which has a bunch of video games and movies for dirt cheap. I ended up grabbing Super Smash Melee, Mega Man Anniversary Collection, as well as a bunch of other things for a great price. I believe I already had a copy of Super Smash at the time, but if I recall correctly, it wasn't a complete copy, and the disc wasn't in as great of condition, so this was a pretty big upgrade for me. I'm not a reseller by any means, but sometimes if I do come across something I know right off the bat is worth some money, I more often than not don't hesitate to buy it and then sell the duplicate that isn't in as good of condition, or maybe it isn't a complete copy. It's a good way to help my collection grow in terms of value, while at the same time selling off the lesser quality duplicates, usually for a good profit. In episode 8, I found an attachment for my GoPro camera that is technically meant to be used for bicycle helmets. But I figured this would fit just fine over the strap of my backpack so that I could film using the GoPro at flea markets or even conventions. It worked better than I could have ever imagined, and ever since I found this, it's been used at every single flea market I've been at since finding it. One of the most profitable finds has to be the Monster Power Center that I snatched up in episode 10. The thing was brand new in the package and only cost around, what, $6? I knew immediately this was going to be worth some money because of the brand name being Monster. They're usually very expensive and very well made. I bought this thing and sold it on eBay just a few days after for, I remember, around like $100, and after fees and everything, that was about roughly a $70 something profit. In episode 6, I found a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 at a Salvation Army for really cheap. I couldn't believe I found something like this since it had been a while since I come across a game worth some money, let alone something I didn't own. It was actually kind of shocking, even more so because it was in great shape. Even though I'm not super great at fighting games, I really enjoy playing them and used to play Marvel vs. Capcom at the arcades all the time, so hey, this was kind of a big deal for me. I love coming across old electronics, especially old radios with the wonderful wood grain finish. I love it so much. I grew up around that time frame where we had a lot of wood grain stuff at the house, and I don't know, I always loved it. It's not like a nostalgia thing. I mean, that's not sort of true. Some of it is, but the thing I notice is like a lot of older speakers or radios that you find like the ones here tend to be built so much better than modern electronics these days that are cheaply made or mostly plastic. I also absolutely love finding those multimedia cabinets like this that have the radio, record, and cassette players. I think those things are absolutely awesome looking. Eventually, at some point, I hope to own one for myself whenever I get a nice, decent-sized house. Until then, I'm not lugging something like that up to my third floor apartment. Oh, hell no. In episode 15, I found plenty of great games at the pawn shops, such as Crash Bandicoot and Black Ops 4 on the PS4. But the one item I found that topped all of that was this Yamaha Portasound 680 I found at a Goodwill for under $10, which is super cheap since these keyboards tend to cost significantly more. This one was a big deal for me because I've always wanted a keyboard like this that has the drum pads and a ton of sounds and customizable settings. It may be old, but it is an amazing keyboard, especially for the time. Episode 13, I surprisingly found a very uncommon game at the Salvation Army, Swagman, for only $1. I never heard of this game before, and the box art looked very strange to me, so right off of that, I had a weird idea that this game had to be worth something, and turns out I was right. The game is nearly worth $20. Unfortunately, the disc was in too rough of shape for it to work. It goes to the title screen, but that's it. However, I was able to resurface it, and luckily enough, the game works totally fine now. Anytime I go to the thrift stores, I tend to come across stuff that reminds me of my father, and of course, that always hits a soft spot in my heart. Like when I find old cameras, projectors, porcelain signs, and so on. Anything that really reminds me of my father. When I find that stuff, I never really get upset or emotional about it. I smile and reminisce on the good old days. Like with the cameras, for example, anytime he found a nice vintage one, his eyes would light up and he would talk about them for God knows how long. And it brings back a ton of flea market memories too, even before I started recording. Seeing anything my father would have liked pulls at my heartstrings a bit. These sort of items may not mean much to my subscribers, my fans, whatever you want to call them, or the typical viewer expecting me to talk solely about video game stuff. But you know what? They mean a hell of a lot to me, and if those people shit on me for that, I don't know what to tell you because it's not going to change. In the later episodes, I started venturing off to pawn shops more due to me not having any luck finding video games at the thrift stores. And it turned out to be a great idea. I found a ton of awesome games at these places, such as the Mega Man PS4 collections, Mafia 2, GTA 5, and numerous other games for cheap. If you have pawn shops in your area, you might want to try checking them out from time to time for games. You never know, you might find a decent gem for a decent price. You may even be able to haggle if you know what you're doing, especially if you're buying multiple games. That's the best opportunity for you to haggle on the price. So that's going to do it for this episode, everyone. I wish I could have made another real thrift store video or even a flea market one for you guys, but given the circumstances of everything going on right now, that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Anyway, I want to thank you all, as always, for watching my videos. Take care, and I will see you next time.